In July's AILA interview of the month, AILA member Tom Ruge discusses an Indiana Supreme Court ruling that protects the rights of injured unauthorized immigrants and makes their immigration status inadmissible at trial in most cases. How did this case come about?
Well, we intervened at the level of the Indiana Supreme Court. The case had been appealed. And the reason I became involved was that the plaintiff's counsel had asked me for some immigration information at that level. And I'm also a member of the Trial Lawyers Association in Indiana, and that's why they called me. The underlying case itself came about because of an injury at the work site that the plaintiff had, and the trial court had ruled that the plaintiff was not going to be able to put on evidence of his lost earning capacity. He'd become somewhat disabled because of the injury. They were not going to allow testimony about his inability or impairment of his ability to earn a living based on his disability because he did not have lawful immigration status or authorization to work. So that case was affirmed by the Court of Appeals, and then at the Supreme Court level, we intervened and were able to get that reversed, and a set of rules set up that are much more reasonable for how the immigration status of an unauthorized worker, it should be considered when the jury is going to consider whether or not and how much of an earning capacity was impaired because of the negligence of the defendant or the opposing party.
Why was the ruling so important?
Well, really, there are two reasons why I at least feel that this is an important ruling. First of all, of course, there are many immigrants who work here without authorization and they become injured. Under our general court system, they're allowed to recover for any losses in their ability to earn a living and lost earnings that were a result of someone's negligence. And so it touches on an important topic for many families of immigrants in the United States. But it's also important because of the methodology that the court set up for determining what relevance, if any, the immigration status of an injured person has in a damages type case. There are quite a few different standards in different states, with some of them being particularly onerous. In order to recover in one state, it's the plaintiff, the immigrant, has to prove that his employer knowingly hired him or her, knowing that they did not have authorization to work, in order to recover for lost earnings types of damages. In other states, they're more liberal and deal with it in different ways. And this decision sets up a pretty good set of rules for when the immigration status of an immigrant is germane or relevant to that loss of earnings or earning capacity. And it puts the burden on the defendants in Indiana now, as a result of this Supreme Court ruling, to demonstrate and prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the immigrant would have been deported and therefore unable to have earnings in the United States. And that's a reasonable way of dealing with it. And so that's why we think it's a good ruling.
How can members get involved in their states?
Well, I would encourage AILA members and AILA chapters in other states and other areas to make a point of having good relationships with other bar-affiliated, in particular, organizations. Maybe some that aren't necessarily composed of lawyers, but in this case, I'm a member of the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association. I'm a trial attorney, and I've always kept up that relationship. And this particular case came about for me because of that. Our local AILA chapter did this as a pro bono project. And there was a lot of interest. People were happy to become involved with it in our chapter. So you can generate some interest, some activity, a pro bono project with an overlap with another affiliate organization like the trial lawyers. There are also other groups organized around employment and other issues that it's good to have a good relationship with. And there's so much overlap that you probably will find common ground and common projects that you can work on. And this, of course, leads to a little more influence generally, and maybe a little more political standing for our clients when we speak on their behalf if we have good relationships with some of these organizations.
Thank you, Tom, for joining us.